So we're going over Jehovah Jireh today. Pastor Jason last week went over the Jehovah section of it. I am who I am, the eternal, everlasting God. If you want to relearn that or you forgot some stuff or anything like that, you can go online and view his message from last week. It was really good. But today, Jehovah has some tags that go on it because he's the God who blanks, or he's the guy who and so there's like Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Rapha, which is stuff you can now look up and study on your own. I just gave you a little bit of homework. Not really, but anyway, so today we're going over Jehovah Jireh, and it's important that we're learning these names, and I think it's just so good that we know the names. Not because we know the names and it's a list of things we have to memorize and you are like not functioning good as a Christian if you don't know and don't have the whole list of names memorized. But what's the important thing about the names is as we learn about the names and their meaning, we get an aspect, we get a character of God revealed to us. Because God, not just he is big and he is mighty, but who he is, his characteristics, his personality is so big and so great, it can't be contained under one name, under one aspect. And so to help us reveal more of God's character, we have different names for him. And we have a lot of names for God, and they're really awesome. And so these names help us reveal God's character to us and help us understand God more. The more we understand God, the more we understand ourselves. So it's very important that we know these names, and I'm very excited about it. So today, the name Jehovah Jireh appears in a story in Genesis. So you can turn to Genesis chapter 22 here. We're going to be in that in a second. And we're going to be talking about the story of Abraham and Isaac, a pretty common story. A lot of us have heard it before, but let's dive in together. It will be on the screen as well. This is what it says, Genesis chapter 22, verse 1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you." Now, those of you who have kids, I don't even have kids, and I know I would struggle with this message for a little bit of time. Anyone here feel like they would struggle with that for just a little bit? Like you're just like, I don't know. I would feel like I would struggle with that for like a couple months minimum before I would be able to do any type of action on it. We go to verse 3 here, and it says this: "Then the next morning, Abraham gets up." He gets up the next morning and takes action on it. And I'm just like, I can't even comprehend that. He's just so much faith, he just goes. So gets up the next morning and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I go with the boy over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Keep going. Abraham took the wood from the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb and the burnt offering?" Isaac's not stupid. He knows what's going on. He's like, I see the wood, and I see the fire, and I see the knife, but there's nothing else to sacrifice. I don't know how I feel about that. And he's like, "Dad, what's going on?" Abraham answers him, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar. I'm surprised Isaac even let his dad bind him. Isaac went along with it. I'm like, I would be fighting. I would be throwing hands but anyway, Isaac gets bound on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and he took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him now. Now that I know you fear God, because you have withheld from me your son, you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over, took the ram, and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And this is the important verse. This is where the name pops up. So Abraham called that place "The Lord Will Provide," or Jehovah Jireh. And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." So you can see where the name kind of pops up here in verse 14 is "The Lord will provide." And the the traditional way the popular way we define Jehovah Jireh is the God who provides, or God our provider. And that's a very good and accurate term of Jehovah Jireh. He's the God who takes care of us. He's the one who provides our needs. He's the one who gives us good things. However, there is a little bit of a deeper meaning to this definition, and I would like to pull it out a little bit if I can. So in verse 8, if we go back to verse 8, when Isaac asks Abraham, hey, what's going on? Abraham says, God himself will provide the lamb. A different way to translate that God himself will provide section would to be God will see for himself. God will see for himself the lamb for the burnt offering. So some translations that will have that, you might see that in your Bible. If we go to verse 14, again, we go back to that last verse, Abraham ties at the very end, he says, the Lord will provide. He names the mount Jehovah Jireh. And to this day it is said, on the mountain the Lord will be provided, was a popular proverb back there. And the popular proverb was, on the mountain of the Lord, he will be seen, or you will be seen. So there is another way to translate, to get a fuller meaning of Jehovah Jireh. And that's not necessarily that Lord our provider is a wrong definition, but Hebrew, especially ancient texts in Hebrew, they don't translate cleanly to English. There's oftentimes we need to have multiple definitions, multiple different understandings to get the whole encapsulated word of what that word actually means to the ancient people in ancient Israel. And so there's another way that we can translate Jehovah Jireh, and it is the God who sees and provides. And as I was studying here, I came across the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia and their definition of Jehovah Jireh. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you because it's like 3 paragraphs long, but I'm going to read this little bit of it. This is what it says. But if the connection of the proverb with the name Yahweh Jireh, or Jehovah Jireh, depends on the double sense of the word see, then the best explanation may be Yahweh sees the needs of those who worship before him on Zion, and there is unseen, i.e., he reveals himself to them by answering their prayers and supplying their wants. His seeing, in other words, takes practical effect in a being seen. So what this means is Jehovah Jireh, a more fleshed out, I feel like, definition would be the God who sees and reveals himself to us by providing the need, which is a really long definition, so we just go Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. But this is what it means. I thought this was so cool as I was studying this. It means that God, he's not a vending machine. So it's not like, I need $5,000 for my car. Ching, and it comes out. And I'm like, whoa. And he's not just some butler that walks around like, oh, this needs to be fulfilled. Or this is what you want. Or this is what you want. And he just goes around fulfilling needs. Rather, he's the God who sees the need. This is so cool. He sees the need, and then he reveals himself to us by providing the need. This means that the point is not fulfilling the need. The point is not to check off a checkmark box and be like, I met that need, we're good. The point is that God is revealed to us more through the answering of that prayer. I thought that was really profound, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. Now, God will take care of us. He will give us good gifts. Jesus talks about a father gives good gifts to his children, and God is a good father. In Matthew chapter 6, as you see in the song reflected earlier that we talked about, Jesus talks about the lilies of the valley and the sparrows of the air, about how if God takes care of the lilies and they're dressed in amazing splendor, almost more beautiful than Solomon and all of his glory, they're dressed beautifully, how much more is he going to clothe you? How much more is he going to take care of that aspect of you? If the sparrows, they don't clock in on a 9-to-5 job, they don't have a retirement pension, they don't farm and harvest and everything like that, yet they eat, they're taken care of, how much more valuable are you than a sparrow? God will take care of your needs. He will make sure that you have a good life because he's a good father and he cares about his children. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that just simply so that the need is met. He does that so we have a deeper understanding of who God is, that he's more revealed to us in that. So if we take this deeper understanding of who God is, Jehovah Jireh, who sees and provides. We go back through the story a little bit, and we look at kind of the story through that lens of this new name. We get a couple more insights from the story, and I think that is really cool. The first one is that Abraham obeyed, and therefore when he obeyed, he created the need. So if Abraham would not have said, you know what, no, I like my son, I do not want to sacrifice him, then he would have never created the need for God to step into that need. And if God would never have stepped into that need, then an aspect of God would never have been revealed to Abraham, and we in 21st century America would have been robbed of a very awesome Bible story. So because Abraham said yes, he said, yes, I'm going to go. He was obedient into an area that created a need, created vulnerability for Abraham. God had the opportunity to step into that and reveal himself. Sometimes some of you here might be receiving a word from God. You might be receiving an instruction from God, and you say, that would cost too much of me. That would put me in a very vulnerable position. I can't do that. That need would be too great if I did that. And what you don't realize is that God is asking you to step into an area of vulnerability, an area of uncomfortability, so that he can step in and reveal himself to you. I feel like that should get an amen of some sort. So Abraham was obedient. He created the need, and God was able to step in and reveal himself to them. The second thing is that Abraham expected God to provide. Abraham expected God to provide. If we go to verse 5, I think it is, Abraham's talking to his servants, exactly. He says, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham already had the expectation for God to provide in some way that was not going to cost him his only child. Abraham, from probably the get, knew that God was going to step in a miraculous way. Maybe he believed God was going to raise Isaac back from the dead. Maybe he was going to receive different instruction along the way. We don't know. We know that Abraham expected both of them to come back from the mountain. Why is that? It's because in Abraham's life, he had seen God move. He had seen God step into opportunities. He had seen God provide already. So he was already operating in an expectation of God to step into that provide in that area. In America, in our lives, we get our needs met very often and very easily. And that's good. Like, I like being able to turn on my faucet and have water. However, sometimes that makes us numb or used to the fact of having our needs constantly met. And sometimes we turn a blind eye, maybe we forget, maybe we just start expecting it to happen, and we don't operate in a mindset of expecting God to provide. And then we go through life, and then we come to a moment in which we need God to step up. Someone had a bad medical diagnosis. There was an accident. The bills can't be paid. I don't know. But there is a moment, and you get on your knees and you say, I need you to step through this. But we haven't already put ourselves in a mindset of seeing God provided. We haven't seen God reflected and seen God all the way that he's carried us through this moment. We get in that moment and we're all panicky. And we're like, I don't know how this is going to work. This is so bad. I'm so stressed out. And all this stuff goes on, and our heart and our soul is in turmoil. And God's like, chill. I'm gonna see you through. I'm gonna take care of you. But we can't see that because we're all in a turmoil already. Sometimes we need to go back. We need to look at our life, and we need to see all the ways, large and small, that God has carried us through, that he has provided for us, that he has provided a different way, a way for us to see through. So when we get in the moment and we say, God, I need you to step up, we already are at peace. We know that God is going to provide. We know that he's going to come through. Abraham expected God to provide because he was always in the mindset of seeing God move and seeing God stepping up in that way. Now, I got to get my notes operating again. Technology. Now, I want to tell you a story. When I was 8 years old, I remember it very vividly. We were up on stage. I was a little kid, 8 years old. We were doing our Christmas play. We were prepping for that and everything like that, and we were practicing. There was a lull moment. No one was singing or anything. The teacher was like trying to talk through someone and be like, okay, this is how you sing it, or this is what you do, this is what I want you to do. And I'm sitting there, I'm just kind of waiting for practice to be done. And I hear a loud thud in the basement. Wham! And then I hear screaming a second later. What happened was my dad was moving boxes with his back, and he was using bad form, and he was like tossing them like this. And he grabbed too heavy of a box, and he tossed it, and the fifth disc of his back exploded. He broke his back severely. And I'm not going to go into the whole story because there was a lot of the way that God provided and stepped through in that. So my dad, didn't die, but he also is able to walk unassisted right now. So God provided a lot in that. However, my dad lives with pain for his entire life. He lives with pain. It's his every day. And sometimes it's so bad, the only thing he can do is just lay down on the floor, and that's it. And our church has prayed for my dad. Pastors have prayed for my dad. Our family has prayed for my dad. I've prayed for my dad in the middle of the night through tears, going, God, why won't you heal my dad? I've prayed for people. Their back has been healed. I have seen my dad pray for people. Their back has been healed. And when we go through times in life that are really difficult, and God doesn't move or provide in the way that we want him to, we can really struggle with this concept of, why not me? Why not me? Why not them? Why did God not move in that way? Why did God not provide in that way? In the way that I think it should happen. And some of you have gone through similar stories to maybe what my dad or what I've gone through. Some of you may have gone through stuff that's much worse and much more difficult. And I'm sorry that you have gone through that. And if I can challenge you today, if you're really struggling with this why not me concept, I have a little bit of advice for you. I don't have all the answers. I'm not God. I can't understand why. But I have some advice I'd like to give you. Take it or leave it. But the first one is one you're not going to want to hear, but the issue is not with God, it is with us. As Pastor has gone over several times with his coil and how God sees not just this moment in time, but he sees all of time, everywhere, for everyone, all at once. He sees the whole picture of everything at the same time. I have trouble remembering what I had for lunch yesterday. And do I know what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow? No. But God sees the whole picture. We get a little bit. And yeah, we can do some remembering because we have memories, and we can do some foresight because we have logic, but not anywhere near the level of what God can. And oftentimes we have an expectation of how God should have moved, or how it should have been provided, or the best way that it would have been done. And God says that's not the best way. That's not the way that it's supposed to be done. And we get upset. We get disappointed. We get mad by that. The other thing is, I want to repeat the thing I said earlier, is again, the goal is not for the need to be met. It's for God to be more revealed to you. My dad and I would attest to the fact that because his back was broken, because he's lived in pain, and the humbling that took place in that, God has been more revealed. He has had more doors for God to be revealed to him and for him to reveal God to other people because his back was hurting that he wouldn't have had otherwise. I, as an 8-year-old boy, because when my dad broke his back, he had to take like a 6-month rehab section. I, as an 8-year-old boy, got to connect with my dad on a very deep level that I might not have gotten if he was busy working at the church during those 6 months. And I believe part of the reason why I have such a beautiful relationship with my father is because he was able to connect with me in that way because his back was broken. And I'm not saying there might be something better or there's a reason that happened to you or anything like that. But I want you to consider these things, especially if you're struggling with, and I really believe as I've been prepping this, there's at least one person here that's really struggling with, why not me? Why not me? Why didn't it happen the way I wanted it, the way it should have happened? Why didn't they get healed? Why didn't they get saved? Why didn't I get provided the way it should have? You're really struggling with that today. And I really want to challenge you to give that up, to move past it. Because if you let this why not me, this thought take root in your spirit and in your heart, it will develop into a root of bitterness. Bitterness against God and bitterness against his love. And it will poison you and rob you of the most beautiful relationship a human can ever experience. So today, if you're really struggling with that, I won't have all the answers. I'm not going to be able to just make it all go away. But I really challenge you today, if you are really struggling with that, talk to God. Work through that. Which kind of, I got a little bit ahead of myself, but brings me to my final points here. What do we do with all of this information? What do we do with this knowledge now that we've gained here today? 2 points. The first point is to seek God. I love the phrase Pastor Jason has been using recently. All good theology ends in doxology, meaning all good thinking, all good learning about God, all good theology, all good knowledge ends in an action of some sort. Ends in an action of some sort. So seek God today. In a second, the worship band's going to start getting out here, and they're going to play a song. We're going to play Jireh again. We're going to provide an opportunity for you to worship, for you to seek God. If you've got to go, you've got to go. We understand that. But we provide an opportunity here for you to seek God, for you to seek his face. Maybe you need your perspective shift. Maybe you need to say, you know what? I have not seen all the way that God has been providing for me. I have not seen how God has cared for me. And I've gotten numb to that. And I really need to get in a position of expectation of God to providing and leaning on him. Maybe you need to be obedient. Maybe God's been speaking something to you in your heart, and you're like, that costs too much. I can't do that. And you need to be obedient so that God can step in and God can provide and he can reveal himself to you. So seek God. Maybe you need a journal. Maybe you need to write stuff down. But seek God either now in this time of worship or later this week. And the second thing, as I already said, those really of you struggling with the why not me, that hardness in your heart, that bitterness that might be taking root, I really want to challenge you to talk to God. Be real with God. Be raw with him. Be angry with him. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be a jerk to God. He's the creator of the universe. But people have yelled at God in the Bible. People have just screamed and been so disappointed and yelled at him. He created you with those emotions. He can take it. Be real with God. Talk to him. And just talk to him and let him speak back to you. And then if you need to, go and talk to someone who's a trusted Christian, someone who's mature and someone who can help walk you through that. Again, not everyone's going to have all the answers, but I just want to plead with you and challenge you. Do not let that bitterness take root in your heart, because it will rob you of the most beautiful thing you will have to experience in your entire life.